All right. Good morning to those who will be watching this and listening when this comes out on Friday. But today is Wednesday. Coach, and how are you feeling?
Coach, feeling great, man.
You feeling rejuvenated?
Yeah, but this hot weather is killing me, man. It's so humid, it's sticky outside. I don't like it, man. I couldn't do it. To those living in Florida, man, salute to you, because I can never. I could never.
Not until you're a multi-millionaire living in Miami.
Right, living in Naples.
Yeah.
Naples for sure.
Yeah. It'll come. The heat not too bad. It's just the humidity. If
Yeah.
Chicago didn't have such bad humidity, it would be different. But because of our humidity, it makes going through the heat unbearable sometimes. But other than that, how was your weekend? I know you went to a concert. You want to tell the people about the concert?
I did.
Just really quickly.
I went to my boy. It was Zach Top and Dirks Bentley. You know, I'm a little country guy, so I appreciate the music, but roast me all you want, but that's all right.
I'm not roasting you, man.
It was good music. It was good music. Just fun night. It was at the amphitheater over there in Tinley, and you know, we had a nice little suite going on. We had our own waitress. It was cool stuff. So
okay.
Can't complain.
Yeah, I didn't do too much. I just worked for the weekend. I ain't go to no concerts, but I did get some gifts and stuff like that for Father's Day on Sunday. So that was cool. That was cool. My
got a happy Father's Day from me too. Yeah.
I did. You text me happy Father's Day. And I told you thank you, but don't end it with Unc. He said happy Father's Day, Unc, and I'm like, you gonna keep up with this old stuff, man. I am what you call in my prime. Like, I'm not even in my golden years yet. I'm just literally right there in my prime. Like, I'm in the age bracket where Jordan was like winning 72 and 10. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I'm at. Respect that. Do you understand that? That's why he's back here. Respect that. Other than that, it was a good weekend. Trying to get this week ready to go, or trying to finish it actually, and then getting ready for our conference on Thursday with the guys again.
Yes, sir.
First week was pretty good, so I'm ready for the second week. But all right, Coach, you ready to get into our show?
Let's get right into it, man.
All right, as you guys always know, how we start off is a halftime give and go. You know the rules, and the rules must apply. First up on the list is on me, Caitlin Clark. Look at here. She comes back from injury, goes out and gives teams buckets, back-to-back games of pure buckets. I just want to say, obviously she's looking like the superstar that she is. I hope that she can lead Indiana into the playoffs again. But we'll see how the rest of the season goes. She's been getting in a lot of scuffles as of late. Teams are really beating her up, so I don't know if they just kind of don't like what she's doing, but her handing the New York Liberty their first loss is pretty good so far, and I hope she can keep going. Next, it's still on me, Shedeur Sanders. Look, after being drafted in the 5th round, after being infamously noted for dropping all the way from the 1st round in this year's draft, and everybody wondering what will happen to Shedeur, it looks like he has a potential chance to be quarterback 1 for the Cleveland Browns, Coach. As long as he's doing what he's doing in mini camps and OTAs and continuing to do that, there's a strong belief coming out of Browns camp and out of their facilities that there is a chance that Shedeur Sanders can end up being the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns to start this season potentially. All right, Coach, it's on you. What you got? Angel Reese. Your thoughts?
Angel Reese, you know, me bounce, she bounce, rebounds, doesn't matter. She's playing better ball as of late, and it's great to see. Still struggling with turning the ball over, but field goal percentage-wise, definitely making her shots a lot more. She's putting up better stat lines. She's scoring more points than she has all season. She's still getting the rebounds, which we know she's going to do every night. Just playing a better brand of basketball, and it's good to see. You know, I mean, people like to make fun of her. People like to meme it and all this other stuff, but, you know, we can't take away from the good she's done for the game.
All right, Coach, still on you. How about the Florida Panthers, Coach?
The Florida Panthers win Game 6 at home and take the cup.
They do.
That was a great series. Didn't surprise me at all. I thought the first couple games when Edmonton was kind of giving it to Florida, maybe it was going to be a little bit different than last year, but Florida ultimately showed their showed their poise, showed their championship demeanor, and just ultimately dominated that series. There wasn't like once you saw Florida put 2 goals in the net and Edmonton had 0, you know it was pretty much game over because that boy Bobrovsky in the net was not letting one by.
Absolutely. All right, Coach, continuing on you. The Big Three is starting and they're moving this summer and they're starting off hot. What's your thoughts on the Big Three right now?
Very hot, man. Just notably, you know, they were just in Chicago just a few short days ago. And shout out our boy Coach Moo. He was actually press at he was media team over there at the Big Three. And man, you know, Dwight Howard, Michael Beasley getting in that scuffle. He's got a nice little meme on the internet, you know, oh, I'm gonna get this one for the hood. It was funny, but nah, man, I think it's fun basketball to watch. You know, kind of being able to see these old NBA kind of, you know, older players that we once remembered to be great athletes. You know, they still got some game in them. Let's watch them play.
All right. Back on me to end the halftime give and go. Luther Burden III for the Chicago Bears, wide receiver, drafted in I think the second round. Really, I thought he was the third round, but. It looks like there might be some issues getting him on the field. He hasn't signed his contract, and it looks like there's a standoff. And between what I'm seeing with Shamar Stewart with the Cincinnati Bengals, there's a possibility that we could be trending in a new direction with these guys coming out of college making NIL money. Coming into the NFL, if the contract ain't looking right, they might just say, you know what? I might hit back to college.
He has been injured, though, so that is another reason why he's not on the field.
Yeah, I know, but he still hasn't got his contract yet.
This is true, yeah, but it does take a while for second-round picks to sign their contracts just because of other stipulations. Yeah. But, yes, it is concerning, considered you did spend a second-round pick on him.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right, we want to remind you guys to follow and subscribe to our YouTube at the Halftime Pod. We see that you're liking our videos. We see that you're commenting. We love all the interactions as always, but we need you to do that last little bit, and that is click that bell and subscribe so that way you can get notified of everything that we're doing in real time, and it also will help improve our show, get us more into the algorithm to make sure that we can continue to give you the best sports coverage on all digital platforms. All right, Coach, are you ready to play our game?
Let's do it, man.
All right, our game. Who's cooking and who should stay the out the kitchen? Number one on who's cooking, and this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, the kid is balling. He just dropped 40 in Game 5, put the team on his Bizak. And it's looking like he's getting better and better game by game. Whatever it is that he needed to figure out from watching film to look at how Indiana is trying to defend him, it's working. Whatever the coaches are telling him, it's really being grasped by him, and he's really taking heed to it, and it's showing up. He's getting better game by game. I don't know if he necessarily has another 40-point game in him, but I will say this: these victories are starting to depend on Jalen Williams for the Oklahoma City Thunder. As much as we know Shea does what he does, it's clear and obvious that depending on the type of game Jalen Williams has, that will determine the outcome for OKC.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He's honestly really putting his name forward for that Finals MVP trophy. You know, of course, it's up for debate whether him or
Shea's been more consistent, so
right?
It'll go to Shea.
Exactly right. But I mean, no doubt about it. The kid's been great. We know Shea's. Kind of how what we've been saying all series, that, you know, we know what we're going to get from Shea. So, you know, you could kind of game plan for the guy to score between 28 to 35 points. But it really does depend on how much can you limit Jalen Williams doing what he does, and they couldn't do anything to him last game. He gets to the free throw line at will. He's got a nice left-hand touch off the high glass. He's got a sweet mid-range game, great footwork. It's just a treat to see, and he's been nothing short but great.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to who else is cooking, and that is Michael Beasley of We Them Ones and the Big Three. I just want to say, Michael, I'm happy to see you finding yourself back into the space space in which you belong, being a star, people noticing your game. You just came off winning that 1v1 against Lance Stevenson.
Yeah.
Obviously, right now, people are using you for troll bait for some of your comments and promoting your 1v1 and just promoting you as a basketball player. But I'm so happy to see you doing the things that you love, people finally giving you your full bouquet of flowers for the talent that you are. And I hope that this continues, because I do know that there was a point where things were really dark for you. You were in a depressed state, and I'm just glad to see things are moving in a better direction for you, and I hope that this continues.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he is one of the more skilled guys we've seen in the NBA in years past. He's got insane bag work, and it's cool to see him step into that big three and finally come back to that, kind of basketball centric just personality that we know him to be. And it's cool to see. Like, yeah, he's a little bit hot-headed, he got into it with Dwight, but he's gonna bring numbers for the big three for sure. I know.
Absolutely.
years past, a couple seasons prior, they've been kind of struggling to get people in the building. This is the type of guy that's gonna get people in their seats.
Absolutely. All right, now to our favorite part of the game. Who should stay the fuck out the kitchen? And number one on that list, it pains me to say, but maybe your NBA players were correct, and this is Tyrese Halliburton. Look, Tyrese, it's not that you need to get out the house. I think you just need to step to the side. I think you need to really realize that you might have to let others cook and then find your way back to the stove for right now. Because one, you're a little hurt, but two, you're having a hard time figuring out how OKC is defending you, and you're picking up your dribble way too much early on into coming off those screens, which leaves you dead. And that was a lot of things. That's what a lot of the turnovers have been coming from, especially in Game 5. It's almost like you were breaking routinely the cardinal sin of all point guards, which is giving up your dribble. And I don't understand why you've been doing that as of late. I don't know if it's because of the injury that you couldn't turn the corner, and maybe that's what it was. Maybe you felt like the pressure was just too high. But I think right now you need to really consider allowing others to kind of do a little bit more of the heavy lifting when it comes down to facilitating and playmaking, and then you can go out there and just become more so of a spot up shooter, slasher, and bucket getter. And I think that may be the transition that he may need to take to help the Indiana Pacers move forward, as we talk more about them later in the show. But what's your thoughts on Tyrese?
Yeah, no doubt. He has been a letdown as of late in these last couple games. Yeah, he had that he had the game in Game 3 where he really played well. Finally was kind of himself again. We know what he did in Game 1 and 2, not much. And then Game 4 ultimately didn't really do much either in Game 5. So they need him, and him, having this calf strain is very concerning, because we don't even know if he's going to play, let alone if he does play, is he going to be able to do the same Halliburton things that he has always done? But yeah, I definitely agree. Him picking up his dribble way too early is very concerning, especially at the point guard position and the facilitator that he is. Him being Kendrick Perkins' number one hated player. You got to be able to show out so you don't get talked about on national television. But yeah, it's disappointing. But hopefully, if he's able to play, we see a bounce back in Game 6 to force this thing to 7.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to his backcourt teammate, Andrew Nembhard. I don't know what is going on with you, and I don't know what happened in Game 5. But it felt like it was Space Jam, and they came with those aliens and sucked all of your basketball powers away, because you literally started turning the ball over like a middle school basketball player. And I don't understand where that came from. Your defense is still pretty solid. It's not as ferocious as it was beginning the series. And I don't know if you're starting to feel tired. I don't know if there's fatigue. I don't know if there is a possibility that you're concerned that you're going to foul out of games, because the referees have been picking up a little bit more of giving Shea these ticky-tack foul calls, which I hope doesn't continue. Even though I think Shea gets, the calls that he's supposed to get, but sometimes it becomes a little egregious the way that they blow the whistle for him. But as far as Andrew Nembhard, look, you're going to be needed the next 2 games to play as flawless as you possibly can. And you're going to have to be more aggressive on offense. You need to shoot your shots. You need to be more aggressive. You need to search for your shot the same way Benedict Mathurin does coming off the bench. I don't know what needs to be told to Andrew Nembhard, but somebody needs to get in his ear and remind him of the type of player that he can be.
Yeah, no doubt. I definitely agree with you on the defensive end. He's been getting blown by a lot more, just off the dribble, which we didn't really see all series. But Shea was kind of doing it at will towards the end of Game 5 there, which is concerning. You can't have that happen. You can't have Shea getting free looks in the mid range or towards the basket.
No.
And interesting statistic here in the fourth quarter. Anytime he touched the ball, he either missed a shot or turned the ball over, which is damn concerning. It's like not one time did he successfully make a pass or make a shot in the fourth quarter, which is that's bad. Like that, especially the run that they made in the fourth quarter, to get down by 2 points, and then you got Nembhard in the game. You're thinking one of your more sure guys that is able to control the basketball and be able to make big plays and big times. He really did let them down in Game 5.
Absolutely. All right. That has been our game of who's cooking and who should stay the fuck out the kitchen. All right, Coach, I just want to remind everybody that's listening to follow me at Coach M_Got It and follow Coach at Coach_KD41. As always, we're giving different takes about a lot of different things, especially if we see something that we really feel like needs our voice. Also, Coach still has his 3-point high AAU club that is going on this summer. We want to remind all listeners, if you have kids that's looking for opportunities to play, please reach out to Coach in his DMs as he is looking to establish this summer going on for his club. I'm not sure how many teams you're trying to put together, but you'll let all the parents know when they reach out about everything that you're trying to do with your club for the summer and then going forward, because a lot of these kids, we will hope that they will stick around and want to come back fall, winter, spring, summer, year after year after year. So yeah, please reach out to Coach at Coach_KD41. And if you got some ideas or anything that you want to talk to me about or training that you want for your kids specifically, you can also reach out to him for that and reach out to me for that. Again, follow me at Coach M_Got It and follow Coach at Coach_KD41. All right, Coach, are you ready?
So ready.
All right, let's move into the halftime report. Yeah. All right, sticking on Indiana. Indiana is in trouble, in my personal opinion. They're in trouble. But I do think that there's ways that they can get out of this, and I believe that it'll be up to Rick Carlisle to make some adjustments and kind of change these things around. So I think one of the things that he needs to consider is obviously the Tyrese Halliburton calf strain injury. So that means that he's going to be on a time constraint if he's able to play. I think the best way to keep him from having to put pressure on that calf is to move him off the ball. So I think you may have to insert TJ McConnell into the starting lineup. What does that do for either Nesmith or Nembhard? I would say put Nesmith on the bench and start Nembhard because he has shown to be the better defender on Shea. Now your question is who guards J-Dub, and I think that's where it gets interesting. And I think that's where you will probably have to put Siakam on J-Dub and put Halliburton on who's else in the OKC starting low? Caruso? Is he
No, he's been guarding Lou Dort all series.
So keep.
It's a matter of who's McConnell gonna guard. Either Hardenstein or Chet. One of the two. Because we know they start off with that double big lineup, which is why Indy has been inclined.
I guess you would have to just say, forget it, TJ. You gotta buckle down and kind of guard J-Dub.
Or you do just bring Halliburton off the bench. That's also an option. I mean, if you are really going to put him on a minutes restriction, I know it's not the popular opinion, but you start the more healthy player and the player that has been making more of an impact in this series, and TJ McConnell, and then you still have your defensive matchups with Neesmith and Nembhard on the floor.
I'll say this. It's not the worst idea, but I'll say this. Him coming off the bench, he can kiss that Finals MVP goodbye.
Oh, for sure. And I don't think it would have gone to him anyways. I think.
Well, I don't know. I think depending on how he played Game 6 and 7, there's a chance that he could have stole it. But
maybe, yeah.
But Indiana is a sum of all their parts type of team, so you might be right. Put him on the bench. Have TJ and Neesmith and Nembhard stay in Siakam. But I also want to say that I think Rick Carlisle should consider potentially utilizing Miles Turner and Thomas Bryant at the same time at some point whenever Chet and Hartenstein are on the floor together. Because if you have Miles Turner and Thomas Bryant in the lineup together, now Hartenstein can't just sit in the paint and protect it. He has to go out and defend Thomas Bryant at the 3-point line just as much as Chet has to defend Miles Turner, and that can open up some driving lanes for Neesmith and Nembhard and TJ McConnell to get to the basket. I do actually like, now that you're saying that Halliburton coming off the bench, because then it will give more facilitating to Benedict Mathurin so that he doesn't have to worry about trying to go off the dribble and play make for himself. Halliburton can kind of manage that to give Benedict Mathurin a chance to just go out there and be in straight bucket along with Obi Toppin. So I actually don't dislike that. I think that might actually be the thing to save the series. If Halliburton is not as healthy to play starter level minutes, then put TJ McConnell in. I think bring Halliburton off the bench, like you said, and then utilize Thomas Bryant and Miles Turner together at points whenever Chet and Hartenstein are on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why Tony Bradley's getting so much bump. He really hasn't done much except foul and get the occasional rebound and be a liability on defense. So that was a head scratcher for me in Game 5 was the amount of minutes he was getting over Thomas Bryant. I mean, I know Thomas Bryant hasn't played the best when he has been in the game this series, but you need somebody that's just a more sure player than Tony Bradley. I mean, he's barely seen the floor all season. I mean, he was in the G League at one point, I believe, last season. Like, he's been all over the place. Not necessarily the type of guy you want getting big minutes in the NBA Finals. Now, I will say that I think they need to make more use of who they got on the bench. You mentioned two guys to me before the show.
I think his name is Quentin Jackson and Freeman.
Yeah,
their forward and their guard. I think.
So when we're talking about a team that wants to play at pace and wants to play fast and continuously play at that pace, you need guys that are going to be fresh and be able to continue that pace all game long. I mean, that's why we see the impact that TJ is able to make every single time he steps on the floor, is because, he's coming off the bench. I get it. And, he is playing against more tired players, but he uses it to his advantage. You know what I mean? Gets the ball, he goes, man. Like, he dribbles it faster than Halliburton does. He gets up and down the floor way faster than Halliburton does.
Yeah.
And he's able to, he gets to the basket. He's got very crafty, nifty ways of getting to the basket. So, you need to surround him with guys that are going to run the floor with him, which is what I think Indiana has been struggling with, is actually just getting guys up and going. Like, that's been their identity all season. And now that they're coming against this OKC team, which is the best half-court defense in the league, I don't know why we're seeing them play more half-court offense than we've seen them play all year. I think that's why they're losing these games, because they're being forced to play half-court offense against the best half-court defense in the league.
Well, I'll tell you this. There's a way that they can manage the half-court, and I think Rick Carlisle is just waiting to do it. I think Indiana will have to make a decision come the fourth quarter to slow the game down a little bit and utilize Siakam. Utilize him on that low post and that nail.
Yeah, or not even exactly on that nail. Like, you got to let him be that offensive hub, and they're not doing that.
Yeah, utilize him on the post and that nail area, and then just spread the floor out with your shooters and Nembhard, Neesmith, even Halliburton if he's out there at that time. Because there's a way that you could play Hallie in the fourth a lot more than TJ. And if you use Siakam at that nail, now you got Miles, who's a shooter, Neesmith, who's a shooter, Nembhard, who's a shooter, and Halliburton, who can out shoot it. And then now OKC has to make a decision. If you double at any point, now we just throw it back out there to the 3-point line, and one of these guys swing action, as we always say, and you easily got a 3-point shot. Now it's just up to the Indiana Pacers to make those shots,
which they weren't doing in Game 5.
Which they weren't doing in Game 5, but at home, I think there's a chance. And then you go back to OKC Game 7 with a similar game plan and just kind of see. But this is what I meant by, like, I think there are some things that Rick Carlisle is hoping that he can keep in the tuck before he has to use it to exploit OKC in real time. But we'll see what goes on. Tomorrow is Game 6 for the Indiana Pacers, and we will find out what the result will be tomorrow. And then come Sunday, Game 7, if necessary, as the NBA loves to say. All right, moving on to the next part of the halftime report. And this is something that, love it or not, it just is what it is. The Bulls are extending Billy Donovan again. Billy is here to stay.
He's here to stay, coach.
Here to stay. They denied the Knicks a request to speak to Billy Donovan, which, to be honest with you, I don't even know why the Knicks were interested in speaking to Billy Donovan.
Yeah,
I guess it's just more so the fact that if you're a Hall of Fame coach, we just assume that, because of that brand, you must be good at something. I don't know, man. And I feel kind of bamboozled by the fact that it felt like Billy Donovan was almost on the cusp of getting his ass put out of here. And as soon as it felt like he was getting close to being, sent home, he became a Hall of Fame basketball coach, and all of that shit went out the window.
Yep. The moment
that he became a Hall of Fame inducted coach, it's like the Bulls were like, well, he's a Hall of Fame coach.
We look stupid if
we fire him now. And how do you justify firing a Hall of Fame basketball coach? Like, we haven't had that since, Phil Jackson. So, I mean, sign him up. Keep him around. Like, I don't understand this love for mediocrity and complacency that the Chicago Bulls franchise seems to just be stuck to, just desiring. I get it. Because of Michael Jordan, you're never going to be a franchise that loses money. You're never going to be a franchise that isn't globally known, globally appreciated. So the money is always going to be there. There's no way that the Chicago Bulls are going to become this mundane franchise because of what Jordan's impact is on the game of basketball and what he set across the world. So the Chicago Bulls will be a household name across this globe. So Jerry Reinsdorf is never going to lose money. And if that's the driving factor for why he's comfortable with being mediocre, why he's comfortable with just staying at the bottom of everything, then Chicago Bulls fans like myself will never, ever see a championship in our lifetime. I want to remind people that, like, prior to Michael Jordan, the Bulls were kind of a laughingstock NBA franchise.
Oh, yeah.
They were the cocaine Bulls.
Since existence. Really.
Since existence.
Yeah. Yeah, you had your Bob Loves and things of that nature.
Jerry Sloans and stuff like that play here. Like, cool. But nothing came out of that. No championships. Michael comes here, changes the culture, instills his will and his presence on what he wants, his domination, and he makes it a mandate for guys to want to be winners, right? And we get 6 championships out of that. 2 3-peats. Every time the Bulls made it to the finals, we won. So it's like, but since post-Michael, we haven't done anything either. Like, we had a short stint with Derrick Rose, and I do believe had the Bulls managed that situation a little bit better, Derrick Rose probably would have not continued to tear at his knee and things like that, and his career could have been different, and maybe he could have brought one to the city. And that could have been the championship that I actually saw. And like,
you would remember seeing.
I remember seeing and appreciating, because I was alive when Michael was winning championships, but I was just a child.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really truly aware of what was going on. So I just don't understand what it is that they honestly see in Billy, outside of the fact that he's a Hall of Fame coach. And just as a caveat, just to throw in, they've also extended Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley.
Yeah.
So, like, not only have you extended this mediocre coach, but you've also extended this mediocre front office. And I get it. I guess to some business understanding, you allowed them to come in as a team. Mark, AK, and Billy, they're like essentially they're our big three. You allowed them to come in and put together a team. And then injuries happened, frustrations boiled over. Okay, so that didn't work, and now you're rebuilding, essentially, or retooling, as some would call it. So maybe you don't want to bring in a whole new regime while you're giving this group, I guess, essentially a second chance. And so maybe that's what this is all about. Like, okay, the first opportunity didn't work. Okay, we're giving you a round two of this. And so if you're going to give them a round two, I guess it makes sense that all of them would get extended at the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because if you didn't, I was going to bring it up that on the back heel of Billy getting his extension, AK and Emmy were both getting theirs. Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. I know we've been kind of not anti Billy, but we've been really critical of his coaching decisions and just his coaching in general in his stint during Chicago. But I'll tell you what though. I could see why they extend him now because I don't think it matters what coach you bring in at this point. With this group that they have, I don't think it matters who you bring in because this group is so lackluster. It's not going to do anything more than a play-in game. You're not going to make a playoff. You're just not with this roster. They call it a retool. It's really going to be a rebuild. I mean, yeah, you've got Giddey, but you're considering paying him over $30 million per year on a long-term contract. You got Kobe White, who's going to be due for an extension after this next season.
And Io
is going to be due for an extension. Soon, one of those two guys is going to be gone. I think very soon. Vooch is definitely on the move probably this offseason.
Yeah, they're trying to move Zoe. They're trying to move
You know what I mean?
Patrick
Everything is all over the place. And, is it really a retool? I don't think so. It's definitely a rebuild if you're trading away, older veterans like that still got some game in them like Vooch and going to trade him for probably, hopefully, a sizable amount of picks considering on some other trades we've seen in the league so far, which we'll get into in a second. But, yeah, I mean, I want to knock Billy just because, I think he could have done so much more when the roster was firing on all cylinders. Yeah, when Lonzo was healthy, DeRozan and Levine,
even when Lonzo went down, there was still ways to maximize that.
Absolutely,
team.
And they were still in the playoffs, right? They still played Milwaukee. They still won a couple games. That was still
only one game.
Yeah, but that was still a winnable series. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just think it was very mismanaged, but. Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm more so heated at the whole AKME extension, but I could also kind of see why they're doing it because, okay, you're going to bring in another front office in a very short amount of time. You just had Garpax for a sizable amount of time. You brought in AK and ME for... What is it going to be about 5 or 6 years at this point? And then you're going to bring in another front office to do what? I mean, you had the chance to sign OKC's GM or executive. Sam Presti. But no, I guess you didn't want to pay that price.
He was too expensive at the time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that just shows the point that the Chicago Bulls franchise is at. And it's going to be mediocre for a very long time. And you know what? As long as there's some type of Chicago team doing something, then I'm happy because honestly, I'm ready to sign my my trade request form to join a different NBA franchise, man, because this is getting old and tiring, man. I got to see Derrick Rose, and that's about it, man.
Yeah, it's getting hard to be a Bulls fan, but let's continue to move on.
Let's get into the trade talk, man.
The little bit of the first trade to hit the market for the NBA, and that is Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic. This trade sets the market in a very weird way. Desmond Bane is a fringe all-star player. He's productive in the role that he takes, but he's not a superstar type player. But the Orlando Magic were willing to give up Cole Anthony, which is their backup point guard, who is pretty good, young. KCP, who is a older 3-and-D veteran shooting guard. And they gave up 4 first-round picks. One of them is a pick swap as well. for Desmond Bain, who is barely a fringe all-star, but somehow they have pinpointed him to be the key piece missing for the Orlando Magic to get into championship contention alongside Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, and Franz Wagner. Wagner. Is it Wagner? I thought it was Wagner. Okay, Wagner. It's spelled Wagner, but it's pronounced Wagner. All right.
You know us Europeans, we like to just make shit complicated.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, Franz Wagner. I'm glad I got it right. I'll try to remember that, but I'm going to always see W, so I'm most likely going to say Wagner again. Yeah. But nevertheless, I don't know how to feel about this trade, Coach. And the reason why I don't know how to feel is the 4 first-round picks just make no sense to me. That's kind of insane for the type of player Desmond Bain is. Now, I do understand pinpointing him as somebody to help you.
Yes.
Because they do need the three-point shooting. They do need somebody that can spot up and shoot. And they also need somebody that can handle the basketball and kind of help and facilitate and probably even go get his own shot at times sometimes. That's not the strength of Desmond Bain to be his own shot creator, but he can get to the basket and drive and stuff like that. But what he's really good at is spot up shooting, coming off screens and different things like that. So his motion and movement allows for Franz and Paolo to be the playmaking forwards that they are, and they have an outlet guy that they feel like can lock down consistently on defense and then also knock down consistently open three-point shots. So I get them pinpointing Desmond Bain as somebody that can help him. I just think the pay for him was extremely too much. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no disagreement there. I think the the amount of value that came back to Memphis for Desmond Bain and just a pick swap was insane.
Yeah.
4 unprotected first round picks, pick swap, and then you got a guy in KCP who has championship experience, who's a shooter, who's a defender, who has kind of been, honestly, for that Orlando team, of a very stable kind of.
Yeah, he just hasn't been producing the way
but he's been just very stable and consistent
available
and available. And you trade a guy like Cole Anthony away, who's been showing upside in very recent seasons, and it's, again, I agree with you that I think it was the right player to target, but man, they just gave up way too much. And honestly, shoot, as a Bulls fan, we'll see how long I remain a Bulls fan, but this honestly puts a smile on my face because now, well, we could start asking more for Vooch at this point. Oh, did you see what Desmond Bain just went for? Okay, well, I want more for Vooch.
Well, I think it raises them. I don't know if we're getting 4 first-round picks.
No, but like I'm saying, like it could raise, like, bro, they were saying we're gonna get 2 second-round picks back for Vooch.
So I think now it probably puts Vooch at a floor of, if you don't get a decent player back, then you could probably get like a first-round pick in this year's draft, and then potentially a first-round pick for next year that's probably protected, like top 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it puts us in that realm for Vooch, and I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, and
it also helps with a Kobe White trade.
I was about to say that. Yeah,
so
it does.
If you trade Kobe, now you look at that and go, well, I'm not sure Kobe demands 4 first-round picks, but maybe we can get 2 for Kobe.
Right, and maybe another younger player. You know what I mean?
Another young player. And then maybe you can even squeeze in Zoe in there for a first-round pick in this year's draft from somebody. So I think it helps the market for like mid-level players. But when we're talking about what we're going to talk about next, and you're talking about guys like Giannis, now it sounds like players like Giannis and somebody of that caliber, there's no way that they can get traded.
I did want to mention before we move on to that, like, I think what nobody's been talking about on this trade is I think Memphis did really well. Like, I think they did extremely well.
Well, they did a very smart thing.
That's
because
what I'm saying.
They moved over $200 million and they packaged that to Orlando.
Yeah, completely off their books.
Yeah, off their books.
And what I'm saying is, like, you may think now, oh, Memphis, just doesn't want to make the playoffs. Now, I would argue that adding a KCP and a Cole Anthony, honestly,
it gives them more playoff. It gives them more depth.
Exactly.
But I think they're looking at the model of, you can't have 3 guys making that much money anymore, especially if you want to stay under the tax aprons.
Yes,
so a lot of teams are moving to the model of saying, okay, give me my 2 superstars, like my 2 superstar building block players. And for Memphis, that's obviously Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Morant right now, and then fill out a team around that. So it looks like they've made that decision to follow that model.
Though there is talks that Jaren Jackson might be on the move as well.
Well, they have to figure out a contract situation with him.
Yeah,
so,
but I'm just saying, like, I think Memphis did extremely well from themselves, and I think they're trying to set themselves up in a way that OKC did at one point.
Yeah, picks, flexibility, and stuff like that. Yeah,
and being able to draft and build through the draft, but you still have solid young pieces you have already drafted, and can build with them along with the future draft picks you are going to draft.
Yeah. Really quickly, do you think this makes Orlando a championship contending team in the East?
No. I think they just lost two very solid role players that were very necessary for their team. I think it helps Banchero a lot. I think it helps Jalen Suggs a lot for a guy like Desmond Bane to step in and be able to produce at least 20 points a night.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't see the extreme upside that 4 unprotected first-round picks and 2 role players in a pick swap would bring. Like, that's the type of asking price we've seen out of superstars.
Yeah.
Desmond Bane ain't no superstar.
I'll say this. I don't know if it makes them a championship contending team, but it definitely makes them a championship threat team in the East.
I think they can become a dark horse definitely in next season, and I think they'll compete more in the playoffs. Is what it's going to be.
I think the lineup of Jalen, Desmond, Franz, Paolo, and Wendell, one, they're very long. Their front court is very long and versatile. But now you have added a knockdown shooter next to Jalen Suggs, who is also a pretty good spot-up three-point shooter. You also take the burden of guard defense off of Jalen Suggs, and you put that on Desmond Bane to be one of your better perimeter guard defenders. So that allows Jalen Suggs to not necessarily be picked on, because at one point it was Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs. So Orlando had a hard time being able to kind of defend the perimeter with guard, especially from the guard position, because they were a little too small. But Desmond Bane and his girth, he's not the tallest, but he's strong. Strong. Yeah, I said it. He's strong. And so with that, it'll give an opportunity for a better perimeter defense and guard play from the Orlando Magic, which I think is what they've been missing. And it gives them additional spot-up shooting that Paolo and Franz can take advantage of. So I like this. If Franz can also turn into a better three-point shooter, like a better spot-up three-point shooter, if he turns into that too,
that team's scary, dude.
This team gets very scary overnight very fast, because now Paolo is able to go downhill, and not only does he have Franz who can shoot, and Wendell has been knocking down some too. So if both of those two guys get better at their three-point shooting, this team gets really, really scary. But let's move on.
I think right player, just too much.
Too much to overpay. I agree with you. But let's move on to the halftime predictions. But really quickly, I just want to still remind you guys to subscribe to the halftime pod, baby. But let's go to the halftime predictions. All right. Now, we finally have to do this, because it feels like it's getting closer and closer and closer and closer.
Each day that passes by.
Yeah, I just want us to go ahead and just give our take on where we think this great basketball player who's coming towards the end of his career is going to finally end up being, and I just want us to say where we think he's going to go. Kevin Durant is on the market. Obviously, he's the hottest thing that everybody's trying to get. He's the belle of the ball, all the things that you could say. And apparently reports are coming out that he prefers the Rockets, Miami, and the Spurs as his destinations of choices. Then there was a report that came out that the Phoenix Suns are trying to get Kevin Durant to be more open to potentially going to the Minnesota Timberwolves, because it seems as though the Minnesota Timberwolves are being the most aggressive with the package that they're trying to send to Phoenix for Kevin Durant. Simultaneously, we're also hearing that the Toronto Raptors and the LA Clippers are not out of the loop for getting Kevin Durant. And so it just kind of seems like there is this ever-going carousel of information regarding where Kevin Durant prefers, what the Phoenix Suns are not going to be willing to do. They're not going to take, they're not just going to send Kevin Durant where he wants to go. They're going to try to find the best offer. We're hearing that this team and that team are is really, really trying to get Kevin Durant. And there's other teams that's lurking. Like at this point, he can go anywhere, right? Essentially, that's how this all works. But I want us to kind of predict where do we think he will actually land. And so I'll let you go first and then I'll go.
Yeah. And also just to note, like I have heard, I've seen from Shams Charania just going on different sports medias, including the Pat McAfee show, that it's not necessarily a matter of if, it's really just when. Like a lot of these offers from these teams are just one piece away from making the trade happen.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be exciting, I think, to see where he goes. Like I think out of any of the four teams, meaning Minnesota, Miami, Houston, or San Antonio, I'd love to see him go anywhere there. I think him in Miami would be fun with Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. I think it would put Miami in a very complicated situation, considering you barely made the play in. You beat the Bulls in that first play-in game, and then did they lose the second one? I forgot who they played, but I don't think they ultimately made the playoffs. I think they lost their second playing game to whoever it was.
Who did Cleveland play in the first round?
Cleveland played Orlando.
So that's who they lost to.
Yeah, so they lost to Orlando. But I think it'd be interesting if you went there. I think it puts Miami in a tough situation, considering you would definitely have to give up a guy like Khalil Ware, whose stock has been rising tremendously. Very athletic 7-footer, very high jumper. You're giving up a lot, like
Jaime Hotcats.
Exactly, and
you might even have to give up Terry Rozier,
probably just to make the contract work. So, and Andrew Wiggins as well to make the contract work.
Oh, I forgot that they had Andrew Wiggins.
So, I mean, it's a very doable trade, but it's a matter of how much depth are you going to have left after you make that trade.
I forgot they had Andrew.
Yeah, considering Kevin Durant's making over $50 million per year. So, that's an interesting situation. Me personally, the one I've been screaming for this whole time, I want to see him go to San Antonio. I think if you got to give up a guy like Jeremy Sochan, you do it. Sohan. If you have to give up, you definitely don't want to give up Stephon Castle, which is what Phoenix has been crying for. They want Stephon Castle in the deal. I think under no condition can you do that. I think you could give up Jeremy Sohan, though. I think you could give up that number 14 pick. You keep the second pick, right, to take your pick between either Ace Bailey or Edgecombe or whoever you want. And then you throw in some salary like a Devin Vassell or Keldon Johnson, one of those guys. I think him, Wemby, and De'Aaron Fox, fun lineup to watch. And then they still have young depth with Stephon Castle and whoever, and they probably still could keep Harrison Barnes unless he's included in the deal to make the money right and things like that. Houston's another interesting one. I mean, you definitely have to give up a guy like Tari Eason. They just re-signed Steven Adams as well. You got a lot of guys on that roster, the younger ones, that are going to be on expiring contracts soon. Like I think Alfred Sengun is probably due for an extension. Jalen Green is another guy. Maybe he goes somewhere.
Right.
They're saying if Kevin Durant goes to Houston, that might be a 3-team trade in which Jalen Green goes to a different team, and then maybe that's where the Bulls slide in. Maybe the Bulls slide in on a deal with Phoenix and Houston. Jalen Green goes to Chicago, and then Vooch goes to Phoenix, and we make it somehow work in that nature.
I'm gonna say this: I don't want Jalen Green in Chicago.
I know I don't either. I'm just saying that's something that was
what I want the
thrown
Bulls
out
to
there.
do. I want them to be the mediating team that just kind of helps move some auxiliary salaries around, and we pick up picks. I would rather us focus on that.
Same here. I'm with you on that.
Get some auxiliary roster pieces, like salary filler pieces that you just put on the roster, so that the other teams can make the money work. But in the process, you get picks from those teams or whatever team that you need to get picks from to make that deal work. That's what I think they should lock in and focus on.
I agree. And let me conclude my statement here so I can get it over to you, because I'm intrigued to hear what you say. But I'd love to see him go to either two places. My first one being San Antonio. My second one, I want to see him in Ant.
I want to see him in Ant.
I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I want to see him in Ant. I
Why? Because they're best friends?
Not
Not best
just
friends,
that.
but they're like
I
they
think
have big bro, little bro energy.
yeah, but I think their play styles would complement each other very well, and I just think that seeing them play together would be fun, and I think that could be a very very tough team as well.
I'm not mad at that. I just don't
I
know.
want to see San Antonio though.
I just don't know if Kevin Durant in Minnesota is going to do what people think it's going to do. I think it'll be fun for the fans of like Ant-Man and KD to think like, oh, Ant-Man and KD being on the same team together will work, but we saw this with Devin Booker and it did not go well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily know. Ant-Man and Devin Booker are similar players. They have different quirks to their game that's a little bit different, but it's pretty much kind of similar to the same type of play. But I guess if you're able to also squeeze in somebody like Alonzo Ball, if Minnesota is able to pull off a situation where they can get Lonzo and also get KD, then now you're cooking. Because I think a point guard like Lonzo with AE and KD could make something happen.
That'd be tough.
That'd be tough. I would like that. So I think if you do get KD in Minnesota, you got to get a better point guard than Mike Conley.
But what do you think's going to happen, Coach?
I think KD is going to land, and this is going to surprise you. He's going to end up in Toronto.
Okay. All right.
He's going to end up in Toronto. Scotty Barnes is going to make his way to Phoenix. I don't know what other pieces that they're going to add to that to make that work, but KD is going to end up in Toronto, and I think it's because Masai Ujiri, I think he just knows how to identify a key piece. And people think Toronto is far away from being a team in the East that can compete. RJ Barrett, Kevin Durant, and Brandon Ingram. I'm telling you. That will be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That will be an absolute problem. Now, I'm not sure exactly. One of them, obviously, one of those three of those young pieces will have to end up in Phoenix. Either Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, or Scotty Barnes. One of those will have to end up in Phoenix in order to get the KD deal done. It'll be up to Phoenix to identify who they will want more. RJ, you got Bradley Beal and Devin Booker, so do you need that? No. Scotty makes the most sense for Phoenix because it gives them that power forward help, stretch guy that can also get the basketball and go, and somebody that they can kind of utilize as a point forward and get the ball to Devin and Bradley Beal on the wings. So Scotty actually makes the most sense. It's just a matter of what other auxiliary pieces you got to throw in to make that work. Is that Podol? So maybe you're looking at Podol and Scotty mixed in with a couple picks for KD. If that's what it takes. If I'm Phoenix, I'm not necessarily mad at that deal. I'm not mad at that. You get a sure proven thing in Scotty. You get a proven center in Podol who can do exactly what you need him to do, defend the paint, rebound, block, and get you your scrappy buckets, and he's low maintenance. So you don't have to worry about feeding him the ball or making sure he gets a certain amount of points. And then at that point for Phoenix, it'll just be about finding that point guard in the draft or on free agency that you can put next to a lineup of point guard whoever, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Scotty Barnes, and Podol. And I think that would be a nice Phoenix team that could be really good, complement each other, and play really well. So I think that's where KD lands, in Toronto.
Okay.
And if Scotty Barnes leaves, I'm not sure who the point guard is in Toronto. I think it's Emmanuel Quickley as their pseudo point guard. So you would have Quickley, RJ.
I know Grady Dick has stepped into that role as well occasionally.
Yeah. So you would have Quickley, RJ, Ingram, KD, and then now you just have to figure out your center.
Maybe you run small ball. Maybe you put in Chris Boucher. Maybe he's your five.
Maybe he becomes your stretch five type of thing.
Or they go ahead and draft
somebody, and you just tell them go get rebounds and defend the paint. That's all you got to do. Run the floor, rebound, and defend the paint because we got everything else around here. I think that's where KD lands.
Okay. Real quickly, second team.
The second,
your backup. Just
my backup. If I had to pick a backup,
because I gave two.
I have to give a backup, I want him to go to San Antonio as my backup.
Okay.
Let me just preface this. I want him to go to San Antonio.
Just in general.
Just in general. But I also think that San Antonio would kind of be foolish to cut short what they have going for Kevin Durant. They have a nice young nucleus. They can be the Oklahoma City Thunder very quickly.
This is true.
And then they have the number 2 and 14 pick in this year's draft, and more picks going forward.
Which is why I think they haven't been so aggressive in getting Kevin Durant, because they know they got that.
Because I think Greg Popovich and everybody is considering, like, he's going to be here for 3 years at max. Are we winning a championship in 3 years with everything that's going on in the West?
Shoot, maybe try to maximize Wemby's rookie contract.
And maybe it does, maybe you don't. But we're going to pay Wemby regardless.
Yeah.
So if we're going to pay Wemby regardless, let's continue to flesh out this roster that's going to be able to build around him and make sure he has a pure ecosystem that's all about him going forward, and everybody knows how to play with him. So if I'm San Antonio, I would think it would be kind of foolish to dissolve everything you have to go after KD.
Yeah.
So I would like him to go to San Antonio, but I think it would be foolish. So I think the other team would be, unfortunately, Miami.
Okay.
And the reason why I say Miami is because I don't think it will work out as well in Minnesota without that point guard. And that would be cool, but I think Miami has everything that Kevin Durant will be looking for. Because
and Pat Riley just has the balls to make that type of trade.
And I forgot that Andrew Wiggins was there, so I was thinking about I was looking at contracts, and I completely omitted that Andrew Wiggins was there.
Yeah.
But now that I'm reminded of Andrew Wiggins being there, that's the perfect complimentary player next to Bradley Beal and Devin Booker as well.
Yep.
Somebody that is low maintenance, that can go get his buckets without necessarily being catered to, can spot up and shoot the three and defend wing perimeter better players and stuff like that. Like, that's a perfect pairing next to Bradley Beal and Devin Booker too.
No
so if I'm Phoenix, I'm looking at Miami and Toronto as the team with the assets that complements what I already have. The crapshoot is San Antonio because they have the number 2 pick and a 14 pick. But if I'm Phoenix, I want both of them for KD. And that might be the holdup from San Antonio right now. Like, both?
Yeah.
Yes, both. Because we got to get what we got to get for KD. So both. And so I think that's what it is. So I would say I think Toronto is going to win the KD sweepstakes, but I think second to that would be Miami.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Cool.
What episode is this, Coach?
Episode 38.
38 episodes in, and we are still going strong. Again, we want to remind you all to follow and hit that subscribe button at our YouTube at the Halftime Pod. We also want to remind you to follow both Coach and I on our individual Instagram accounts. You can follow me, Coach Malcolm, at Coach M_got it, and you can follow Coach Conrad at Coach_KD41. We want to thank you all for listening, as well as letting you know and remind you that we're all on your favorite streaming platforms, from Apple to Spotify to Amazon Prime. And as always, you can find us on YouTube. We want to continue to ask for anybody that wants to send any pictures or anything like that. Please let me and Coach know. Hit us up if you got any pictures, portraits, photographs, paintings, or anything like that you would like to see behind us on our beautiful set. We would love to put you guys on our wall and just shout you out to our viewing audience. Other than that, do you have anything that you want to add, Coach?
No, man, just always appreciate the support. Love the views we're getting on all the different social media platforms, and let's keep this going, man. It's been a ride, and this is fun. I'm excited to see how the finals play out and what happens in this NBA draft.
Putting you on the spot, who win Game 6?
Indiana.
Good man. Good man. All right, that's been our show. Episode 38 of the Halftime Podcast, the best sports coverage on all digital platforms. And as always, you know how it goes. I'm Coach Malcolm.
And I'm Coach Conrad.
We want you to see red and bear down, baby.